The story begins by showing a group of thugs wreaking havoc at a waste processing facility. This place turns out to be owned by a man named Gu Dahe. The thugs were sent by a local mafia boss who intends to take over the land and turn it into a tourist area. Not only were these thugs cruel, they were also utterly barbaric, going as far as to desecrate the grave of Gu Dahe's late mother. Deep down, Gu Dahe wanted to fight back. But what could he do? He was just a simple scrap collector, powerless against them. And the story will focus on a police captain named Captain Lei. He is known as an honest officer, one who strictly follows procedures, upholds the law, refuses bribes, never seeks personal gain, never delays helping those in need, is highly disciplined, and incredibly brave. At the moment, Lei and his fellow officers are on a mission to apprehend a large-bodied fugitive. Calmly, Lei sits right in front of the fugitive, pours all the chili sauce into his bowl of food while performing his signature move, flashing his police badge. And this is what happened next. After the fugitive was apprehended, Lei immediately received a new assignment related to a land eviction, carried out by a mafia boss. Gu Dahe, the landowner, recorded an amateur video to report the crime committed by the mafia, and pleaded with the police to take immediate action on the case. Without them realizing it, shortly after Gu Dahe finished recording the video, he was approached by a mysterious man named Tai Jun, an enforcer sent by the mafia assigned to eliminate Gu Dahe, who was considered stubborn and uncooperative. Using his signature weapon, a hook, Tai Jun beat Gu Dahe until he was helpless. And what happens to him next remains unknown. The next day, Lei and his subordinates arrived late, because Gu Dahe had already disappeared. After examining the crime scene, Lei and his team met with a local officer and began coordinating to help each other.
领导好，这家伙真带劲。上面有血迹，还有油青味，凶手用的有可能都是屠宰类的工具。咱们得去看看去。走。
Let me introduce you to the mafia boss who has been oppressing the people all this time. His name is Tianlang. Coincidentally, that day there was a demonstration led by the village chief concerning one of the villagers, Gu Dahe, who suddenly went missing.
Wei Tianlang, 把我给交出来!
Seeing Tianlang's actions growing more and more brutal by the day, one of his business partners became angry, but that turned out to be a fatal mistake, because Tianlang is someone who can't take criticism and refuses to listen to anyone else. After assaulting his own business partner, Tianlang came out to confront the protesters. But instead of acting friendly, putting on a good image, Tianlang did the opposite. He lashed out at the crowd and coldly claimed he had nothing to do with Gu Dahe's disappearance. With help from the village chief, Gu Dahe's younger sister, Yuan, tried to press Tianlang, demanding he reveal her brother's whereabouts. But he remained just as cold and indifferent as before. Tianlang simply turned his back and walked away without saying a single word. After the protest ended, the village chief went to meet Lei at his office, hoping for an explanation about what was really going on. However, instead of giving a clear and detailed statement, the chief was too busy rolling his favorite cigarette. His hands trembled. He seemed too afraid to even mention Tianlang's name, not wanting to suffer the same fate as the other villagers.
其他村民就没有意见？
那不可能没意见的。
Not long after, an officer arrived, bringing urgent news about several villagers who had been found severely beaten. It turned out they had just been tortured by Tai Jun, one of Tianlang's most ruthless enforcers. This only fueled Captain Lei's curiosity even more, as he still had no idea who was truly behind all the terror.
迁坟强拆案，全权负责调查破案工作，顺藤摸瓜。
The next day, Tianlang's thugs caused even more trouble. This time, their target was an elderly man, the humble owner of a small restaurant. They deliberately created chaos in his business, just to pressure him into selling his land. Not long after, Lei arrived at the scene. He immediately asked the old man about the characteristics of the perpetrator who had assaulted him. However, the old man seemed too afraid to speak. He chose to remain silent and didn't provide any clear information. In the end, Lei and his team had to investigate and find the perpetrator on their own.
要不要去医院？
去什么医院？没事。
Fortunately, there was a surveillance camera at the crime scene, so without needing to pressure the old man to speak up, Lei finally managed to get the gang leader's license plate number.
你们认识啊？
这人就是我们正在找的嫌疑人。
Arriving at the hotel where he was staying, Lei immediately received a call from an unknown number. It turned out to be Tianlang, who got straight to the point, trying to bribe Lei to stop his investigation. The bribe offered was no small amount because
我的个天哪！
long story short, night fell. Using the license plate number of the gang boss, Lei and his subordinate were seen already at the massage parlor, the place where the boss usually got his massages. There, Lei quietly slipped inside and secretly took the therapist's place to massage the boss himself, which led to
劲儿怎么这么大呢？差不多醒了，你醒了不是你他妈傻！
As usual, Lei flashed his police badge as part of the arrest procedure. However, since the boss didn't realize what kind of cop he was dealing with, he tried to run, but then, several of the boss's men showed up to help, but they were no match for Captain Lei on his own. Lei managed to take them all down with ease. The boss was finally caught and his phone was confiscated. Through that phone, Lei discovered a new location, an entertainment venue that might lead him to new clues. Upon arriving, Lei discovered that the place was an entertainment venue, specifically for the elderly, until a woman named Ning approached him and offered him some entertainment. That's when Lei realized Ning was actually a broker, guiding clients to hidden, illegal entertainment spots, and, as usual, Lei immediately flashed his police badge to speed up the investigation process. And here is Changlin, the owner of the entertainment venue. When asked whether she knew Tianlang, Chenglin claimed she didn't know him well and knew nothing about him. When in fact, at that very moment, Tianlang was actually in the next room, standing right in front of a mirror, directly across from Lei. The next day, not wanting to waste any more time, Lei went straight to Tianlang's place. Knowing Lei was coming, Tianlang had prepared a table full of special dishes, a gesture meant to impress or distract. But none of it managed to interest Lei in the slightest. Instead of trying to bribe and act friendly toward Lei, hoping he would stay silent about his involvement in the case, Tianlang clearly misunderstood, because the officer he was dealing with was not a typical cop, so that...
别到时候把自己给打进去。
Yes, Tianlang finally revealed his true colors by saying that he was a powerful man, rich, well-connected, untouchable, and capable of buying the law. But Lei wasn't intimidated, not in the slightest. He calmly replied, "No matter what your status is, or how much money you have, if you've broken the law, I will still arrest you." That night, we see the truth, that Tianlang and Chenglin are indeed working together. They've captured the old man, now tied to a chair, brutally tortured, because they believe he's spoken out about their involvement in the case. Switching over to Captain Lei, who had just arrived at the hotel where he was staying. As he entered the elevator, a couple also stepped in with him. It turned out they were both Tianlang's henchmen, sent to eliminate Lei, and this is what happened next. The next day, Lei visited the old man in the hospital. He assumed that the terror the residents had been experiencing was indeed orchestrated by Tianlang. However, since they didn't have strong enough evidence, it would be quite difficult to arrest him. Switching to Yuan, Gu Dahe's younger sister, she is seen asking Ning for help to arrange a direct meeting with Tianlang. Ning refuses, saying it's too dangerous. But because Yuan keeps insisting, Ning reluctantly agrees to her request.
Gudah!
At night, at the entertainment room, Yuan met Tianlang. She knelt and begged Tianlang to tell her where her brother, Gu Dahe, was. It was not without reason. After their parents' death, Yuan had no one left but Gu Dahe. However, before telling her, Tianlang asked Yuan to remove all her clothes and... Yes, it turns out, Yuan's real intention in meeting Tianlang was to secretly record his confession so she could hand it over to the police. But unfortunately, Tianlang found out. He killed Yuan and dumped her body into the river.
下什么？
这钓会儿鱼也没钓上鱼，我看那边，我一打开。
是。
A few days after Yuan's death, Lin, the owner of the entertainment venue, came to Ning's residence, carrying a bag full of cash. It turned out, Lin had reviewed the surveillance footage and discovered that Ning had secretly recorded Yuan's death using her phone. So Lin's visit was to ask for the phone, while also offering money as hush money. Switching to Tianlang and his mother, who are visiting the grave of his late father, also present is Tai Jun, Tianlang's loyal bodyguard, who, as it turns out, is the godson of Tianlang's late father. It's no wonder. Tai Jun is so loyal to Tianlang, he considers him part of his own family. This is where the real reason behind Tianlang's cruelty toward the entire village is finally revealed. It turns out it wasn't because he wanted to seize their land, but because of his father's death, who was poisoned by one of the villagers. The case remains unsolved to this day, and the perpetrator is still at large. As an act of revenge, Tianlang deliberately made the villagers suffer as payback for his father's death. His mother had repeatedly warned him not to take such actions, but Tianlang, unable to accept his father's death, continued to torment the villagers until the person who poisoned his father is found. Switching over to Ning, who was having a party with illegal substances, along with 2 male friends, using the hush money she received from Lin. Ning seemed to be enjoying herself in that place, completely unaware that Lin and Tianlang had already sent Tai Jun to execute her, and this is what happened next. On the other side, Gu Dahe, who turns out to still be alive, is being held captive in an abandoned building. However, the one responsible isn't Tianlang or even Lin, but the village chief himself. He claims he did it intentionally to protect Gu Dahe's life.
我要不把你关在这儿，天朗就得把你弄死。真是。
When Gu Dahe asked about the condition of his sister, Yuan, the village chief said that everything was fine, when in fact, Yuan had just been found dead after being killed by Tianlang. Day by day passed, with mounting pressure from the villagers, urging Lei and the police to immediately arrest Tianlang. However, without sufficient evidence, Lei and his team were still unable to take any action. Feeling untouchable, Tianlang continued to act arrogantly, torturing and threatening the villagers one by one to keep them silent, which only deepened the suffering of the entire community. And you might be truly shocked to find out that the village chief was actually colluding with Lin and Tianlang. They were part of the same group, taking advantage of each other for their own gain, and no one knew anything about it. Seeing that Tai Jun was always by Tianlang's side and knew too much about the conspiracy, the village chief and Lin grew worried. They feared that if Tai Jun were ever caught by the police, he might have no choice but to expose everyone involved. So, to prove his loyalty, Tianlang ordered Tai Jun to cut off his own tongue, as a sign that he would never speak a word. And so, the next day, Lei met with Lin to investigate Ning's death case. However, by accident, he discovered another clue, the remains of the village chief's favorite cigarette. Without questioning it immediately, Lei was then invited into the changing room. And suddenly... Yes, Tai Jun was sent by Tianlang to eliminate Changlin, considered a potential threat. Fortunately, Captain Lei was there, and Changlin's life was saved. From there, Tai Jun, having failed to eliminate Changlin, fled to the rooftop, but was immediately pursued by Lei. For the first time ever, Tai Jun had finally found an equal match, because until now, no one had ever rivaled him in a fight. Tai Jun, who began struggling to fight Lei, pulled out his signature weapon, the hook. However, even that couldn't bring Lei down, as he was extremely hard to defeat. In the end, Tai Jun was completely powerless as Lei beat him until he could no longer fight back. The attempted murder carried out by Tai Jun automatically implicated Tianlang in this case. Finally, Lei succeeded in making an official arrest, while Tianlang himself was seen making a phone call to someone in a very high position, the governor, who turned out to be Chenglin's father, and who had been frequently receiving bribes from Tianlang. Upon learning that the governor had been arrested, Tianlang immediately asked the village chief to help him escape out of town. It's unclear why the village chief cares so much and is always trying to protect Tianlang. However, at the same time, Gu Dahe, who was being held in an abandoned building, accidentally overheard Tianlang's voice and decided to step out and... Yes, Gu Dahe immediately attacked the village chief after discovering his betrayal, but... After discovering their conspiracy, Gu Dahe finally spoke up about a secret he had kept all this time. The secret was related to the death of Tianlang's father, that the person who killed him was none other than the village chief himself. Therefore, yes, Tianlang ended up killing the village chief. He truly never expected that the one who had killed his father all this time was someone so close to him. Now that his revenge is complete, Tianlang must flee from the police. But just as he is about to escape, suddenly, set in a fish processing plant, Lei tries to uphold justice by arresting Tianlang, who has brought nothing but suffering to the villagers. Unexpectedly, Tianlang shows incredible strength and unyielding determination in his resistance. The fight turns intense and nerve-wracking, to the point that Some time after Tianlang officially became a prisoner, his mother came to visit him to reveal one final secret, perhaps the biggest plot twist of all. Before Tianlang was born, his mother had an illicit affair with the village chief. To clear the path for their relationship, the village chief poisoned Tianlang's father, causing his death. But fate had other plans. Family pressure kept them from ever being together. Which means Tianlang is actually the biological son of the village chief, a truth that had long been subtly hinted at through the care and protection the chief consistently showed toward Tianlang. But now, it's all too late, because Tianlang has already killed his own biological father.
人齐了，走一个吧。
走一个。好。
你看今天这么多好菜，你们一定吃好喝好。
刑事案件，你的休假临时取消，赶紧归队。
Finished. The moral lesson we can learn from Tianlang's character is that old wounds and revenge can turn a person cruel. He chose the path of violence because he felt the world had destroyed him. But through that revenge, he gradually lost his humanity. Revenge may feel justified for a moment, but in the end, it only brings destruction, both to others and to oneself. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Thank you.